But without further ado, let's get into history for the day. Pulling up a map. This is from the World History Encyclopedia website. This is a map of specifically Phoenicia and where many of its colonies or influence was. So, Phoenicians were a polytheistic, having multiple gods, seafaring people. They primarily started off in the on the east coast of the Mediterranean Sea. Tyre was their capital, I believe, and this would have been the core of their territories along the coast here. They began around 3000 BCE. Their peak of prosperity and extent of their empire would have been starting in about 1500 BCE and going up to 300 BCE. Two things they were best known for are their trade. We'll get into some of the things they traded in a moment, as well as their alphabet. For sea trade, they traveled almost as far, or like even as far out into the Atlantic Ocean, all the way over here on the west, and they founded the city of Carthage, which would later go on to become its own nation, and that would be a rival to Rome for a good while. They had fairly large ships. One of the structures that they built were harbors called I forget. I think Kothons that were great for allowing many ships to dock, and they could essentially field a much larger navy. They traded not only in lumber from various forests around the Mediterranean, but they also traded in purple dye, which they made from snails. Purple was fairly rare at the time. It still would be for many years after, and it even becomes to be associated with the color of royalty. But in exchange, they frequently would get other luxuries like figs, olives, and spices from elsewhere. Their system of writing consisted of 22 different characters, and this was one of the first alphabets that would have letters represent sounds that you make. The sounds then could be pushed together to actually make words, and this was pretty helpful when speaking with the various different cultures that they would encounter and trade with, as they could explain the words, how they sound them out and their meaning. That alphabet is then adopted by the Greeks and the Romans, who create the alphabet that we use today. So this is one of the earliest forms of the English alphabet, technically. Outside the Phoenicians, also in this area, are the Israelites. They were a monotheistic, primarily nomadic tribe that began in Mesopotamia. So that's more over here along these rivers. And they use the the sacred text of the Torah as their guiding principle. This is still true for Jewish people to this day. One of their first leaders was Abraham, who taught about the monotheism, and he gave them a divine command to leave Mesopotamia, and they moved towards Canaan. Canaan is this area here in the south, on the east coast of the Mediterranean. It includes Israel, Lebanon, and Palestinian territories of today. Due to unfortunate drought and famine, the Israelites had to move on into Egypt, where they were enslaved. This is where we get the story of Moses leading the great exodus from Egypt of the Jewish people, and bringing them back to Canaan eventually. Jerusalem is also a city hopefully most of you are aware of. It was conquered after the Philistines in Canaan were defeated, and King David developed Israel into a more united kingdom, making Jerusalem its capital. His son, King Solomon, was the one who built some of the early temples in Jerusalem. But when he died, the kingdom split into two: the kingdom of Israel in the north and the kingdom of Judah in the south. The Assyrians, who we covered a couple days ago, took advantage of the unrest here and they exerted their control over the region. However, when they fell, the Chaldeans conquered them and destroyed Jerusalem. And the people of Jerusalem, so the Jewish people, were exiled again back to Babylon. Following this, the Persians eventually took over and allowed Israelites to return to Jerusalem. That's kind of the story in the ancient era of the Israelites and the Jewish people. They, of course, worship, or their religion is called Judaism. This is characterized as a covenant between the Israelites and their God. It is a contract, an oath that they take. And Abraham, the first of their leaders, was promised that they would become the leaders of nations due to this divine right. Additionally, they had the 10 Commandments, which were divine laws about proper behavior towards God. And those were delivered to the Israelites by Moses. Also, in ancient times, Judaism had some prophets that were various religious teachers who spoke for God and advised the people. And that's the fairly quick chapter on Israelites and the Phoenician people. And as you can see on this map here, they mark where specifically the Phoenicians were trading certain resources. I know we kind of covered them fairly quickly because they tend to not stick around very long, and also it's more important, like Carthage, that came from them. But yeah, they settled all over Spain. They potentially got tin from up here in Brittany and Cornwall. They potentially explored the African coast and were able to trade for gold and ivory, as well as all along the northern coast of Africa, the Greek city-states, and the Etruscan city-states in northern Italy. This would be before the official rise of Rome. If no one has any questions or commentary they'd like to add, we can move on to the next segment of the day.